Hello, humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Let me ask you a question. Do you wish that Nintendo had a standalone console, even if it's in the Switch 2 platform, right? And, I've been thinking that for a long time. I've been wanting to make a video on it, and I thought I was going to make it last week, and it skipped my mind, whatever. But, the company has lost its soul. I've said this many times, and it's really because of the new leadership that's focused on, software only, microtransactions, $80 games. We all know the story, right? But when I think of Nintendo, right, and it's probably because, I'm a legacy player, meaning that I'm really old. I've been around since the very first console. Guys, to me, Nintendo has always been a console company. And these last two generations, am I going to say that I've been unhappy with this product? No. I've been very happy with the Switch. I'm not as enthusiastic, nor have I bought personally for myself. The Switch 2, there's gifts out there, but not for me. I haven't seen anything yet that has inspired me to get it. But one thing that would inspire me to get into that platform would be a standalone console. In a standalone companion console, if you will, for the Switch 2, it really widens the customer base. Who would they target? What customer could you target out there with this? First of all, the production cost for this would be a lot lower, especially if you have a digital only standalone console. It would be cheaper. It just would be. What you're looking at is probably a version of the Switch 2, just in a smaller form factor, if you will. You would take out the Xbox Series S in a heartbeat, and you know what? Xbox wouldn't care. Xbox wouldn't care as long they would tell you, "Hey, we'll stop making the Xbox Series S," and this is just hard brass tacks, guys. If Nintendo would make this, Xbox, if Nintendo would make the Game Pass available on a machine like this, they would do it like this. They'd stop production on the Series S right away because they would do so much more business. It's just a fact. I'm sorry. It's just the user base is that much larger. And I don't hate Xbox, as you can tell. Right? I own a bunch of Xbox games and all the consoles. But that's something that Nintendo could target. Now, what good points, and I've written this down because I started making a video, which I'll take, by the way. You can see if you remember, I made a list down, and when I started recording the video, I completely forgot it because I was doing some other things around the house. Anyway, guys, regardless, the first advantage would be cost discipline, right? You can reduce the cost, up the performance on this thing, and you would have a standalone console that would keep the customer base within the same family, right? Within the same system. It would be market segmentation without fragmentation, basically, right? I want a console. I don't like the Switch. I love Nintendo. I don't want portable. There's plenty of Nintendo guys like that, right? There's plenty of Nintendo people that don't like the Switch. It's just a fact. They like the old consoles. They like the GameCube. They like the NES, Super NES, and we're all into that. And then, if you remember when the console was first launching, the Switch, a lot of people were like, no, especially the hardcores, older people, whatever. We may not be the number one market, but we are a huge part of the market for Nintendo. Absolutely. Right? We're the ones buying these older games and the remakes and the remasters and all that stuff. A lot of it is us. Now, the other thing that you would do with this is you would get better performance when it matters, right? Because the challenge with this portable systems is they're always underpowered, right? You could do a little bit better with this. If you had something you can plug directly into a network, whether you're talking about a cloud, whether you're talking about adding a little bit more RAM, improving the GPUs, that would be an easier thing to do in a form factor like this. That's just it. And it would be a better experience for the gamers, right? And a positive. And last but not least, guys, it's historical precedent, right? And I'm not saying that this is, I don't like this product. I've enjoyed my time with it, right? But Nintendo has always been a console company until the Switch, right? They went hybrid and they did all this stuff. I mean, to me, if I was running the company, I would have the Switch 2. I would have the standalone console here. I always get trouble with the directions. And then on top of that, I would have a rebranded DS, right? A 2-screen digital only version for legacy players, for those of us, because the form factor, for those of us who enjoy old school play of the 2 screens, but you have to remember that the form factor of the Switch and the Switch 2 is bigger than the DS. The DS, let me grab it, really is more portable, And a lot of business people, let me tell you, carrying around the case for a Switch is not something you do at the office. And when you compare, right, let's compare here, right? Look at that. And for the type of games that I'm talking about, this you could slip in your coat pocket, right, at work. The Switch, if you have a really big coat. But you could keep it all in the family, since we're talking about digital products. You can purchase them, interchange, whatever, the ones that are able to do that anyway. So to me, you can expand the market within and keep everything with the same structure. Not everybody likes playing portable. Some of us still yearn for, physical media. We like the consoles. We like having the console there, looking at it, the form factor. And let's face it, having the dock is not the most aesthetically pleasing thing to look at. And if you looked at what these console makers have done, except for PlayStation, they've all gotten to squares because they want to do cost savings. I mean, it's not about aesthetics. It's not having straight lines and corners, guys. It's always cheaper to produce. The molds are cheaper. And that's really it. You can make it modular. You can snap it together, all that stuff. When you're dealing with round corners, when you're dealing with spherical shapes, they're harder things to engineer and harder things to manufacture, right? And to them, it's really just about making money. You're going to buy it anyway, whether I make a square, a circle, a triangle. They don't care. They're just going to make it. And that's taking a lot of the innovation, out of the consoles, really. It's happened to what happened to cell phones. If you remember back in the early 2000s, cell phones, you had all different kinds, and everybody had, different types of cell phones, whether it's a Razor, the Kick, the chocolate back in the day, music players, all that variety, right? What a great market that was. And some of us miss it. Some of us miss the form factors. And now all phones pretty much look the same. And it's the same things happening in the game industry, right? Where everybody's accepting, okay, we're just going to make squares. And I think Nintendo can do better, right? It can do better. And for long-term growth, I think it would be a better idea. It's time for them to expand. I know the Switch product has been very popular, but at this point, I feel that the market is staggering on them, that they're not going to grow as fast with the Switch 2 because the library of this is so huge, right? You could just buy a used Switch, get you a few games, just download, especially for old school players. They're not looking for the latest and greatest. So I think at some point, the Switch 2 is going to hit a wall of value, as I like to call it, because it's just the prices are getting insane. And that's when Nintendo should have this type of products as alternatives to customers that don't necessarily want to buy the Switch product. What do you guys think? Is it wishful thinking? Would you guys like to have a standalone console? I sure would. Stay on tune for another video. We're going to expose Juanito and the Amico scam and all the crazy rules. Let me tell you, what you're going to hear in this next video is absolutely insane. Insane. So stay tuned. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Make sure you like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments what you think. If you want to look at the outtakes of this video or support Kofi and subscriptions, I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.